I stood at the top of the Movenpick Hotel in Islamabad yesterday and I got goosebumps because for as far as the eye I could see these solar panels installed on almost every rooftop in the country. We are facing a climate catastrophe. The impact of climate is biting hard around the world, whether that's extreme heat, bushfires, droughts, or extreme flooding, rain, and other implications. There are implications for crop failure and flow-on effects, which are really quite profound. And some of the more vulnerable economies are the economies that are going to feel the brunt of climate change first and the worst. This is a global experiment happening in Pakistan. The world doesn't understand how profound what's happening here is.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Front Seat to Climate Change. Pakistan is in the middle of a remarkable energy shift. Rooftop solar is appearing across homes and businesses, driven by falling technology costs, rising electricity prices, and a growing desire for greater energy independence. But installing solar panels is only the beginning. As more people begin generating their own electricity, a much bigger question emerges. What comes next? How do we store that energy? Can our electricity grid keep up? And can Pakistan turn this solar boom into a smarter, more reliable, and more affordable energy system? Australia has already traveled much further down this road, becoming one of the world's leading examples of consumer led renewable energy. Its experience offers important lessons for countries like Pakistan, not only about what works, but also about the challenges that emerge when renewable energy adoption moves faster than the systems designed to manage it. Joining me today is John Grimes, Chief Executive Officer of the Renewable Energy Council Asia Pacific and a leading voice on renewable energy, battery storage, and the clean energy transition across the Asia Pacific region. Hello, John. Thank you so much for joining us today on Front Seat to Climate Change.
Really fantastic to be here.
Pleasure having you on the show with us. So, John, Pakistan seems to be at a really interesting point, right now because solar has gone from being relatively niche to something we're seeing almost, everywhere. Pakistan has witnessed one of the fastest rooftop solar booms in the world over the past few years. So, from your perspective, is this the beginning of long-term clean energy transition or simply a response to rising electricity prices?
Well, electricity prices drive everything. And what the people of Pakistan have shown is that when you're confronted with high prices, the rational and sensible thing to do is to install solar. I stood at the top of the Movenpick Hotel in Islamabad yesterday and I got goosebumps because for as far as the eye I could see these solar panels installed on almost every rooftop in the country. That is unbelievable. This is a people-powered revolution. This is ordinary families, small businesses taking matters into their own hands, taking control of their economic future, but also contributing really positively for an environmental outcome. So take a bow, Pakistan. What an absolutely inspirational job this country has done, showing the world that that bottom-up solar rooftop revolution is possible. And the thing is that the technology continues to reduce in price. This is just the beginning. The power system in Pakistan and around the world will be built on solar and batteries, energy storage. And so this is the first step in a really inspirational journey.
Absolutely. But do you think this is a response to rising electricity prices that has been done in
It's
Pakistan?
It's all about economics. If prices
Yeah.
go up and there are cheaper alternatives, the rational thing to do is to go with the cheaper option. That was so clear. I went to a business yesterday. They do logistics support globally. They've got a big solar system installed. The payback time on that system was 2 years. That system will produce electricity for 20 years or 25 years. So that is free electricity for the next 18 years plus. So there's basically nowhere that you could put your money that would give you a greater return on investment than that. So this is all about economics. Pricing drives everything.
I completely agree with you that pricing does drive everything. And over here, especially in Pakistan, um, there was no choice but to do this, because the prices of the electricity were so high that a revolution had to come. So that's why I think this happened and people switched to solar. I also want to bring the conversation to Australia because Pakistan obviously isn't the first country to experience this kind of rapid shift when it comes to, household solar. And Australia is often seen as a global success story in consumer-led renewable energy. So what are the biggest lessons that, Pakistan can learn from Australia's experience and that Pakistan should adopt and the mistakes that Pakistan should avoid?
In Australia, we have over 4.5 million solar rooftop systems. One in three homes in Australia has solar on its rooftop. That's an extraordinary figure. In some parts, there's as much as one in two. In places like South Australia, which is a big economy, there are times of the year when the economy is powered entirely by rooftop solar alone. Forget the big solar farms, forget the big wind farms. This is rooftop solar alone. So we really have gone through a massive transformation and learning curve. I spoke to
Yeah.
the engineers in South Australia 15 years ago. They said when we get to 20% solar penetration, the system will stop working. And now, 15 years later, we're way beyond that. We're at times 100%. And what the engineers have figured out is how to manage that variable renewable energy. You can do it securely. You can do it in a cost-effective way. That's the big lesson that we've learned. And that's the lesson that we're really standing by to help support Pakistan as it deals now with a new set of system implications where you have a lot of solar available during the day. And then, of course, the sun goes down, but you've still got a big demand. How do you manage that process? That's been the big learning from Australia. And they're the lessons that we want to share with Pakistan.
Absolutely. There's something that we don't talk about, as solar adoption grows, which is that we do not talk about what happens to all of that energy once that energy is generated. Pakistan's solar adoption has grown rapidly, but battery storage remains limited. Why are batteries so important, and how can they unlock the full potential of renewable energy?
In Australia, we had something called the Cheaper Home Battery Program. It was a government subsidy program to subsidise about 30% of the cost of home batteries. And that began just over 12 months ago. In 12 months, we've installed 500,000 batteries across the system, over 14 gigawatt hours. That's a lot. And what we're seeing is that those batteries are playing a very positive role. First, they time shift energy. They collect energy when there's a lot of energy at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They store it and they make it available at 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night when everybody's at home running air conditioners and appliances. So that's really positive. The second thing that they're doing then is actually helping what we call the duck curve. This is where you have too much energy in the day and a real shortage at night time. And what the batteries are doing in front of our eyes is flattening that out. And what that does is it reduces the costs of the electricity system, the whole system, for everybody. Not just for people who have solar, but there are cost savings for people who do not have solar as well. And that's important. Needs to play a critical role. In Pakistan, I would say today you have a absolute booming success with rooftop solar. But you today face a solar battery emergency. We need to get as many solar batteries into the system in Pakistan as quickly as possible. They need to be safe batteries. They need to be good quality batteries. They need to be low priced batteries. But already the economics make sense. Taking solar, which is so cheap, and a battery can deliver in Pakistan today prices that are about half the cost of buying from the electricity grid. So not only has solar dropped enormously in price, but solar batteries have too. And so Pakistan can be the beneficiary of that. It's important that now we accelerate quickly to get as many batteries into the system as possible.
So if we do see, just adding on to what you said, if we do see, batteries and solar continue to grow, the next question, really becomes that whether the grid itself can keep up. which is exactly what is actually happening in Pakistan now, right? As more households and businesses generate their own electricity, Pakistan's electricity grid is coming under, increasing pressure. How important do you think are smart grids, and do you think Pakistan is prepared for the next phase of the energy transition?
I was privileged to hear your energy minister speak just a couple of days ago here in Islamabad. And he clearly has the view that industry working with government and the system operator is the pathway forward for Pakistan. And I couldn't agree more. I think that that collaboration between technology, industry, consumers, and the network is absolutely vital. And I think you've got all of the components here where I see that happening very constructively. You're right. If you take solar on its own, it can be destabilizing for the grid. But if you integrate it with solar batteries, for example, then you have enormous system-wide benefits. One of those benefits is that we're increasing resilience for households and businesses. I was at a charitable education university yesterday. The power went off 3 times while we were sitting having our meeting. And so, if you have the resilience of having solar and batteries distributed right throughout your network, all of a sudden you are less prone to natural disasters, heat waves, floods, and other things that disrupt the energy system. We also reduce the energy cost overall, but we've got to think about the grid in a different way. It's no longer taking energy from one place centrally and pushing it outwards. Rather, it is a system that is enabling energy transactions, the production of energy, the consumption of energy, centrally, but also increasingly distributed. And of course, smart grids is at the heart of that. The thing that's impressed me here in Pakistan is how sophisticated and advanced your energy planners and engineers are. I joined roundtables, and the debate there was the same debate that I'm hearing in Sydney and Tokyo and New York. This is a global conversation, and Pakistan really is actually at the forefront of this global experiment. And so I would completely say Pakistan has all the elements to figure out how we do this. It's all very well for Australia to come up with a solution that helps, make this transition, but the rest of the world does not look like Australia. The world looks like Pakistan. And if Pakistan can do this, this is a shining example for places like the Philippines, like Mexico, places in Africa, all around the world. So I think super, super impressed and pleased with what's happening here. I think you've got all the elements for success, and we're really excited to see what happens next.
Like you rightfully said, we do have all the elements for success. It's just about the implementation, and it's about the governance, and it's just about putting all the parts together in the right place at the right time. Um, and what's interesting about this transition is that it just doesn't, change where our electricity, usually comes from. It actually changes who actually produces it as well. And millions of Pakistanis have actually now become, electricity producers through rooftop solar, which I think is pretty cool. So how does this shift actually change the traditional relationship between consumers and utilities, and what opportunities do you think it creates?
I think globally we're a bit of a fork in the road moment. We can go in one direction or the other. In one pathway, we collaborate. The grid is such a valuable national asset. It's something that's been developed and paid for by our society, and we all get a benefit from it. And so that's really great. We should preserve that and build on it. But at the same time, if energy operators don't change the way of thinking and actually deliver services that the customers want, there's actually a risk. And the risk is that customers will defect from the grid. They'll say, actually, solar plus batteries is actually a better way for me to go, and I'm going to disconnect from the grid. Well,
Yeah.
I mean that's okay in some circumstances, but it's not equitable, and it doesn't leverage in the most efficient way the massive investment that we've made. There are companies like Kodak that were a big deal one day and actually gone the next. So what we need to say is this is actually happening. People are being empowered. This is a people-led revolution. This is that, and people want to have a say and get fairly compensated for investments that they make. That's entirely reasonable. But we should be also looking for ways for that win-win between the private investment and the national asset. And how do we bring all parts of the society, particularly the disadvantaged parts of society, that can benefit in this transition as well?
Absolutely. And there's always another side of the story. What's good for an individual household isn't, of course, necessarily straightforward for the wider electricity system. And one concern that is often raised is whether rapid rooftop solar adoption could create financial challenges for electricity distribution companies, like you just mentioned as well. So, how do you think Pakistan then can encourage renewable energy while maintaining financially sustainable power sector, while maintaining a financially sustainable power sector?
I was really pleased yesterday to meet with the IMF here in Pakistan and to talk about this really important structural opportunity to price electricity according to what it actually costs to produce at that point in the day. Because there are different electricity costs in the middle of the afternoon than there are at 9 o'clock at night. And so if you can create a time of use tariff that reflects the reality of what the cost is, then we can drive behavior change. If we can actually incentivize people to take energy from the middle of the day where there's excess solar and time shift it to the evening, then they get an economic benefit, but the whole system gets an economic benefit as well. I know that the government in Pakistan is looking closely at this type of arrangement, and I would highly encourage them to work as a partner with industry. Industry has dealt with these issues in other jurisdictions around the world. The Pakistan Solar Association here in Pakistan are genuine world-class experts. So working in partnership, providing expert advice to the government and to the IMF, I think we can come forward with a really groundbreaking proposal that helps economically and will actually be an example to the world of how this rooftop transition is possible.
So it sounds like the challenge isn't whether Pakistan should, embrace solar anymore. It's about building the right system around it, right? And looking, beyond solar panels, what policy reforms do you think that Pakistan should prioritize in the next 5 years to build a smarter, more resilient, and consumer-driven electricity system?
So I think about different users and thinking about policies that might be applicable to them. The first, I think, are the most disadvantaged people, people
Yes.
who don't have access to electricity. How do we put, for example, in place low interest loans to allow people the capital to make an investment in a small solar panel that can give them a fan and keep them cool during extreme weather? That can charge a mobile phone and connect them to the world, that can power a light and allow a child to actually study at night time and actually get
That's
ahead
brilliant. Yeah,
in their education.
brilliant.
The second one is the householders. So how do we actually have policies? And I actually think that the need for strong incentives is no longer necessary. The economics make sense on their own. If we have an energy system that's priced to allow for that, then we know that in Pakistan people will act. People are smart. They're sophisticated. They'll figure out the system. They'll find the incentive and they'll actually back it. That's what happened with solar PV. And then I think about commercial and industrial users. They are looking for energy security so that their industrial processes are not disrupted by, if the power goes off. Today, those companies rely on diesel generators. We know that the war in the Middle East has put diesel prices absolutely through the roof, sky high. So something that used to be expensive is now eye-wateringly expensive. And so they are saying, how do we stop our dependence? Because We don't control what happens in other regions and other parts of the world, but nobody can come and block the sun in Pakistan. And so we're actually taking control of that. A big solar array with a big battery is actually much more beneficial for a commercial operation than the uncertainty of future fuel prices and the really expensive bills they're facing today. So I think about all parts of the sector. And then finally, I think about the large on-grid opportunity to actually plan where do we put energy storage to help the whole system, the assets that are in the control of the energy operator. So we've got all of the pieces of the puzzle. The economics make sense. The technology is here. The people are literate and ready to act. So all of the pieces for success are in place, and that's why I am a Pakistan energy transition optimist.
I actually love what you said that nobody can block the sun in Pakistan. Absolutely. So nobody can block the sun in Pakistan. That is so true. And if we actually use that viably, and I actually will stick to what you said that um, uh, we actually should put those people who are disadvantaged first, and we should make policies around them first because nobody can block the sun in Pakistan, right? And then we can do so much if we think around those lines. So brilliantly, you've put it around brilliantly, and so much can be done. So I would like to, stick to what you said, and the things that you said were so brilliant that I hope that people who are watching this show can take a lot from that. And the system is also changing incredibly quickly because now we're seeing technologies that would have sounded quite futuristic just a few years ago. They're actually becoming a part of the electricity market now. And around the world, technologies such as AI, smart meters, virtual power plants, and digital energy platforms are are transforming actually electricity markets now. Which of these innovations do you think could have the greatest impact, perhaps, in Pakistan?
In the short term, it will be allowing the energy operators to turn the headlights on to see what's happening on their grid. Because at the moment, behind the meter solar is invisible to the grid operator. They don't know when it's producing or not producing. They don't know how much it's producing. They don't know when it's putting energy into the grid. And so that is difficult from an operator's perspective. One of the easiest things to do is to harness the information that's in the inverters around the country. And this is easy to do. That the manufacturers have built the inverters in such a way to meet international standards. So this capability exists. It's not a costly exercise. We need to find the solutions, and there are solutions globally that will allow us to actually monitor in real time a fleet of rooftop solar systems. And from that, we can extrapolate and say, okay, we know that this is what's happening in real time. It is complex. There's a lot of data involved. It's not something that a human being sitting in a computer can kind of manage because you can have cloud cover come over an area that the generation actually drops away quite radically, and then the clouds pass and then the generation increases again. So it is complex. There are tools. So I think in the short term, harnessing and turning on the headlights for the energy operator is the big low-hanging fruit. The second opportunity is the advent of AI to actually then have a system that's optimized. And that is about millions, probably billions of data points. And that's what AI really excels in doing is taking that big data, making sense of it and actually making operational decisions. I think that we'll be astounded at what AI will bring to the energy system. I think that the AI will probably be forecasting and telling us about problems that we haven't even considered yet, that we didn't know were going to happen, and operations and natural disasters and more. So, I think there's plenty of applications for technology in this sector.
Absolutely agree with you, but don't you think it's a bit ironic when we talk about AI as well? Because we have two streams of people. One stream is that, of course, one stream fully supports the use of AI when it comes to, climate change and using AI to support climate change. But the other stream, does not support the use of AI because when we talk about creating such data centers, when we're talking about AI is, sort of depleting our water resources when we are creating those data centers. So what do you have to say about that?
Look, we don't want to create, solve one problem and create an environmental
Yeah.
crisis with the solution. I completely agree with that. It is imperative that the energy uplift that AI is going to bring to the world is powered with zero emissions technology. While we've spoken throughout the program today all about economics, and economics is the right frame, it is the right frame that will drive our outcome and action, we should not lose sight of the climate imperative. We are facing a climate catastrophe. The impact of climate is biting hard around the world, whether that's extreme heat, bushfires, droughts, or extreme flooding, rain, and other implications. There are implications for crop failure and flow-on effects, which are really quite profound. And some of the more vulnerable economies are the economies that are going to feel the brunt of climate change first and the worst. And so we definitely need to be saying we cannot be ramping up our fossil fuel emissions to power AI. I think that's a really critical point. There's also a national security perspective that maybe there is some AI national, capability that needs to be developed and
Yeah.
servers actually in Pakistan running Pakistani systems. I think that's entirely appropriate.
I also, want to move beyond the climate argument for a moment because in Pakistan, the economic case for this transition is, just as important. Pakistan is, looking for ways to, strengthen its economy while reducing, emissions. What opportunities do you see for renewable energy to create jobs, attract investment, and, sort of attract local manufacturing in Pakistan?
So what happens today? You import coal, you import gas, you import gasoline, diesel into Pakistan, and then you burn it. And then you import coal and you import gas and you import gasoline into Pakistan. That's doing two things. One, it's sucking money out of local communities and it's sending it in foreign reserve currency to other places and other stakeholders. What renewable energy does is, yes, there is an upfront investment, but as I said before, the investment payback period might be 2 years on a 20 or 25-year asset. All of a sudden, that money is staying in the community. So there are two benefits. That's a cost saving for whoever's paying the electricity bill, but it's an opportunity, an economic opportunity for the rest of the community. That's money that is not leaving the community. It's money that's staying in the community, and then that builds opportunity and enterprise. The second thing is if we're sophisticated about this, if you're bringing stable electricity for the first time to a region that's cheap and abundant, then actually, what can you do with that electricity? Maybe you can start a coconut processing plant or a fish canning facility or some other enterprise that wasn't possible before. We should be thinking about how do we harness energy and improve the lives of people, actually build economic resilience and actually, increase our standard of living and our prosperity. The third element is, okay, some of the solar equipment might be made in other countries, but somebody in a foreign factory cannot install a solar panel on a roof in in Karachi, right? That's not possible, right? That is done by an army of tradespeople, of small businesses, of retailers who are all deriving an economic benefit for this. And if we're training that workforce and also including marginalized groups and making sure there's gender diversity in what we're putting together, that these systems are put in safely, that will perform for the long term, then what a fantastic economic news story for Pakistan. So many economic upsides and benefits of this energy transition.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, we want local capacity building and we want local reliance, which will, of course, scale jobs and which will improve the standard of living, like you mentioned. And it is the economic growth that drives all of this. And it is the increasing prices that usually drives changes like these and pushes people to come up with these changes. And if gender diversity comes with these things, That is just amazing. And we need that, especially in Pakistan. And now we can see, changes like these happening in Pakistan as well. So you've had the opportunity to, see how this transition is actually playing out across in very different economies in the Asia Pacific. So I'd like to, broaden the conversation little as well. As CEO of the Renewable Energy Council Asia Pacific, you work with governments across the region. Which countries do you think Pakistan can learn the most from and why?
Actually, I think there are actually two countries that come to mind. The first is Australia, and that is because there are very few countries that have gone the rooftop solar route. Most countries have done large-scale solar. So, and Australia is more further down the track in terms of dealing with the issues. This has been something that's happened in Australia over the last 20 years. It's not something that happened over the last 2 years. So I think there's a lot that we can share, and so that discussion is super important. I think that's a very valuable discussion. But the other country that comes to mind is the Philippines, because the Philippines, I talk about energy markets popping. And what happened in Pakistan is the economic environment was such that the rooftop solar market popped. Now, what I see is that the Philippines is about to pop. Now, that's really interesting because Pakistan has a lot to offer in terms of knowledge sharing and skills and capacity building for Philippines. And so I actually see this as kind of like it's kind of like a council of experts that is coming together. I think Australia is absolutely at that table, but I think Pakistan has a seat there. And collectively, we're going to figure out how you do this, not just in rich countries, but in all countries around the region and the world. So that's why I would pull out those two countries in particular.
And of course, collaboration is the key, right? We all have to work together if we want a positive change in the world, and especially when it comes to climate change, because climate change is a issue that does not see where you live, that does not see which country you belong to. It does not need any visas. It impacts everyone differently, and especially those who have the least impact. It impacts those people the most. Um,
If you care first and foremost about people, as I do, then the opportunity for collaboration is immense. There are old paradigms of geopolitical structures and all of that. That actually is a game that's played by kind of elite people in governments and think tanks. But the vast bulk of people, the vast bulk of humanity are good people. They're productive people. They actually just want to improve their lives and their communities. They care about their children and their future. And it's that group that we should be harnessing. That's the great thing about the rooftops, that for the first time, average people, ordinary people, mass people are being included in this discussion. So that's why it kind of gives me hope about where this discussion goes from here.
and that is the people whose lives that we want to make an impact on, right?
Totally.
So that's absolutely amazing. And of course, on front seat to climate change, we always want to bring this back on resilience because for Pakistan, the energy transition isn't only about cutting emissions. And Pakistan is among the countries most vulnerable to climate change, facing increasingly frequent heat waves, floods, and extreme weather. How can renewable energy systems make the country more resilient to these climate impacts?
Every solar panel makes a difference. I had the pleasure of watching a documentary made with these very underdeveloped people in Pakistan that have small solar panels, and they carry them with them. As they move around, they take their solar panel with them, or they have a small system that they actually fold out. I haven't personally had the opportunity to go to these areas and meet these people, but I desperately want to.
That's
Um,
Pakistan for you.
that's perfect. Like I'm in, right? I'm totally in. So I think that's really inspirational. So if you think about the shocks that we're facing, geopolitical shocks, energy crisis, environmental crisis, climate crisis, then actually renewable energy is the antidote to all of those things. This is about resilience. It's about empowering people. It's about reducing costs. It's about reducing emissions. And so I would actually say that it should be a national and a nationalistic program. Pakistanis should be proud. There should be a national scoreboard, to say how much energy are we producing through our fantastic solar resources? How are we going to capture that with our solar batteries? How are we making that resilient in our entire solar system? And make this like a national point of pride because it should be because it is.
Definitely, I think this should be integrated into our policies, and definitely this should be spoken about more. And definitely, things that we have missed about in these particular things, we should incorporate it in our climate policies, and we should actually gather data about it in a better manner as well. John, so we've talked about where Pakistan is today and the challenges ahead and what we can learn from the other countries as well. So I want to end by looking forward as well. So finally, if Pakistan, gets its policies right, where do you see the country's renewable energy sector in 10 years from now? And what single decision made today do you think would have the biggest impact on achieving that future?
Unlock the power of solar batteries. That is the biggest opportunity for Pakistan today. If you get that right and the policies around that right, Pakistan will figure this out. And we harness that, almost 40 gigawatts of solar PV, like almost as much as the entire generation, nameplate capacity of the country in solar. So I think that what we'll find is that we will have a more resilient grid. It'll be a cheaper grid. In fact, by embracing renewable energy, Pakistan will get a national economic advantage because if your electricity costs are cheaper than your competitor, then the cost of producing whatever the product is goes down. I heard about flour mills in Pakistan. These are the ones that grind up the flour, make the big flax sacks of flour. I'm told that there are flour mills now that are no longer competitive if they do not have solar because the reduction in the energy cost turns into a 500 rupee reduction per sack of flour. And this is, and when it doesn't sound like a lot, but when, in scale, it's really a lot. And
It's a
so
lot.
to stay competitive, you actually have to transition to the new technology. And so all the pieces are here. This is a global experiment happening in Pakistan. The world doesn't understand how profound what's happening here is. If you get this next step right, then you open a very prosperous opportunity and a beacon of hope, frankly, for other places around the world. That's why I am all in on the Pakistan energy transition. That's why I'm in Pakistan this week. And that's why I'm so excited to see what happens next in this country.
I'm going to end by what you said during our conversation, that the sun cannot be blocked in Pakistan. And we should use it to our advantage to benefit the most disadvantaged people first, because that comes first and foremost for us. And we can do so much when it comes to Pakistan's economy, and we should use it. Thank you so much, John, for your brilliant insights. Thank you for taking out the time, and thank you so much for being here on the show. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure speaking today.
Thank you. What today's conversation makes clear is that Pakistan's solar boom could be the beginning of something much bigger, but solar panels alone won't deliver an energy transition. The real challenge now is building the systems around them, from battery storage and smarter grids to better regulations and policies that allow consumers to become active participants in the energy system. For Pakistan, the question is no longer simply how quickly we can adopt renewable energy, but whether we can turn that momentum into an energy system that is cleaner, more affordable, and more resilient to a changing climate. Thank you for watching Front Seat to Climate Change. I'll see you next time.